Good morning, everyone. I hope that this video has shown you that there is a good blend between the traditional linear television that you have seen at the beginning, and then what I would call the new world of short-form video, the YouTube, OTT of this world, and they blend very nicely. And when I joined the company 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, we decided together with my co-CEO to redefine what would be the strategy of the group. And we had the feeling that overall the world is evolving, and we thought about our name, our brand, about TV. And we came to the conclusion that in our view, TV means now total video. Why is that? Well, the reason was already mentioned by the people here on the stage, by Ben Jansen in particular, is that the screens have developed over time. 20 years ago, it was one television, as you rightly indicated, and one family. Now it's multiple screens, and I think that I just took one number. You've got here the number of smartphones worldwide available. We went from 300 million to 900 million. You see as well that the number of connected TVs is growing now to 600 million worldwide. So definitely things have changed in the living room and outside from the living room, no doubt. What does it mean? Well, again, all these are, I would say, things that you have seen 100 times. But the best way to see it in terms of number of channels is, I believe, on this chart. And what you see is an explosion of channels. It started back in the 80s, either in USA or in Europe, with what we call cable channels, you know, the NBC, CBS of this world, making the CNN, the A&E or the AMC of this world, and then it moved back into Europe. And then everybody here in Belgium created what they call their family of channels. VTM started it when they started commercial television, so did we at RTL TVI. We created one channel and then a second and a third, and now we're multiplying the number of channels worldwide. And the result is what you see here. It's an explosion. And these channels are not only linear in our verbatims, they are also now non-linear, SVOD, Netflix, Facebook. Everybody wants to distribute video. This is, I believe, a mega trend, and I can assure that when you meet in 5 or 10 years, you will see this funnel having grown quite dramatically in my view. What does it mean? Well, very simple. More channels means more content. And again, I don't need to explain to you that the content has exploded. Afterwards, we can discuss about the quality of the content, whether it's user-generated, whether it's high quality, low quality, prime time, non-prime time, whether it's distributed linear television only, or whether it's non-linear or OTT. One thing is sure, is that the consumer is winning, no doubt. He has a choice that he never had before, and I just took a couple of icons here of these shows that everybody among you are watching. It's not only Baywatch anymore, or Dallas, as I heard in the room, or Bonanza. It's also about all these new shows, whether it's House of Cards, Idol, The News, Super Kids, you name it. It's available to the consumer, and it's available in a rather seamless manner. That's on the supply side, a lot of content. The reason being as well is that, of course, the cost for somebody to put content on screen is minimal. Everybody in the room could start a YouTube channel tomorrow or today if they want. They just get hooked into an MCN, and then they start their own channel. Obviously, it's not linear television anymore, but it's called a channel in the YouTube environment as well. If you look now at the demand side, what is really striking, and I'm sure some of you have children, is that your children are not watching linear television that much. What they are watching are either YouTube or Facebook. And what you see as well, that what they're watching is not things that you would watch on the big screen. So the battle for the attention of the millennials is absolutely key for audiovisual groups. And obviously, everybody in this room, has gotten this and wants to go for it. Just 2 examples which are mind-boggling. If you ever go to the US, to the VidCon is probably the largest video conference on YouTube. It's in California, Orange County. You'll have 20,000 kids meeting in huge halls, like Expo here in Brussels. Huge halls, just meeting the YouTube stars. You've got one of them here, which belongs to us. It's RCL Beauty 101. This lady there is doing probably 20 million videos a month, so it's quite big. They're making a living out of it. They've stopped working, they just produce videos for YouTube. And so we need to understand how we reach the millennials, and we need also to get involved in producing and making content for these millennials. This is what it is all about. The other element which is striking to us when we devised our strategy is that we realized as well that the definition of what we call a TV hit has dramatically changed over time. 20 or 30 years ago, there's one show nobody mentions, but Cheers, was in US reaching nearly 100 million viewers per episode. 100 million. Now, in the very best cases in the US, and I took here a series which, obviously we're broadcasting our station, but I wouldn't call it a mega blockbuster. Blacklist is doing 26 million. This is the most and the highest rated show in the last season in the US. So you see that the hit has been redefined quite dramatically downwards. If I just take Idol, which was one of our shows in the US, Idol is generating at best 15 million viewers in the US. At best, it was making 50 already 5 years ago. So what you see is that the hits are becoming smaller, but they are also becoming rarer. And as advertisers, as we all know, it's not only about reaching targeted people, it's also about getting mass audiences live during two or 3 weeks to launch a new program. So you still need these 26 millions to basically launch your new products on screen, and there is a certain scarcity element now linked to it. As far as the RTL Group is concerned, as you know, and it's true in particular in Belgium, we like very much local programming. If you look at the grid of RTL now in Belgium, we're probably, I would say, 70% local, 30% scripted. In Germany, by the way, it's 90% local, 10% scripted. It's even more. But at a group level, we also thought that with the emergence of all these new platforms, it was also important to offer not only local entertainment or news programming, but also scripted. This is why we decided at group level to invest quite heavily in this new genre, and I gave you here two, I would say, icons of what we've been doing. On the left-hand side, this is a series which is more for pay TV. It's HBO, Sky, Canal Plus, or Stars in the US. It's Jude Law. This has feature film quality. An episode here would cost you in the tune of 8 million US to produce, 8 million US per episode. This is a 10 times miniseries. So it's big, but in order to make it profitable, you need to have a worldwide exploitation on multiple screens. Otherwise, you can't do it. And of course, you need to have the financial muscles to actually produce this and get Jude Law under contract just to make this. The other one, which is even more striking, is American Gods. For those who read comics, this is one of the large comic books. Gaileman produced or made something like 1 million or 2 million copies worldwide about his book. We're now translating this book into a television series. The cost of producing this will be even higher. Here we're talking about 10, 12 million US per episode. It's quite massive, but still we believe that content of that quality, of that nature, is also important for audiovisual groups to produce. So it's about entertainment on the one side, it's about sports, obviously, but it's also about scripted television that new platforms are highly demanding. By the way, these two, if I take American Gods, will be on Netflix as well, or Amazon to be precise. Now, let's step back 2 minutes. I've talked about the millennials, I've talked about devices, I've talked a little bit about content. I'd like to go back to the basics of strategy, if you don't mind, just for 2 minutes. It's about the value chain that was mentioned here as well. And if I had to portray the value chain in our traditional linear broadcasting, or radio, by the way, it applies here. You have got, first of all, producers, and then you've got broadcasters, and then you have got the end devices and the consumer, and of course, you've got the distributors. Most of the programming which is flowing through this value chain is what I would call long form. Long form meaning anything between half an hour and 1 hour, to oversimplify. Obviously, you've got other formats, but it's long form. Great model, great business, high reach, still fairly stable. So we love that business, and most of you in this room are basically in this linear value chain. The problem, or you would call it the opportunity if you were American, the problem that we're facing is that there is a cloning of that value chain that you've got here, which is a one-to-one replica of that value chain. And this is basically OTT, non-linear. And here, we're talking about creators that are not necessarily the big boxes, the Lionsgate or Disney or Columbia or Fremantle of this world, or the Woost and Vis of this world. There are people you probably never heard about, Zoella, Nikki, Guy Home, Smosh, you name it. These are the YouTube stars. There are 100 of these. You probably know 1 or 2, no more. But this is what your children are watching. They're watching these guys. Of course, they continue to watch the big shows, but they also watch this, and they watch it on their smart G phone. That's the creating part, the content part. And then you've got the multi-channel networks. This is a name that appeared to us 3 years ago when we started to scout the US market. And we ask ourselves, how do we get involved in this space? Bear in mind that YouTube probably does 70% of the total distribution, and obviously YouTube was not for sale anymore. We couldn't buy into YouTube. So we said to ourselves, let's go deeper into the value chain of the YouTubers. And we realized that behind YouTube, behind this wave, there is a second wave of what we call multi-channel networks, which are aggregators of content. You don't see them on screen. When you Google or YouTube on, let's say, Zoella, you won't find all these MCNs, whether it's BBTV, Maker, DV Move, StyleHall. There are probably 10 or 20 of them which are relevant worldwide. But these are aggregating all these YouTubers, because when you're a YouTuber, you don't call Google and say, hey, I want to be hooked into your system. It's much more complicated than that. The only way for you to be hooked is basically to be funneled through these aggregators, which are the MCNs. And we say to ourselves, well, if we can't get into YouTube, let us at least make sure that we get involved into this element of the value chain. And you'll see in a minute we bought into multiple of these multi-channel networks, which, by the way, are not in Europe. They're all in the US. All of the US, simply that the US, as you know, has always 5 to 10 years advance versus Europe in audiovisual. And then you have got what I would call the distributors, which are OTT, which are basically unmanaged platforms, and you have a couple of these. The content which flows in there, it's short form for the most. It might become long form in the long run, but it's short form, it's anything between 10 seconds and 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes. So the cost of production of this content is dramatically lower. Typically, I mentioned the millions that you need to produce a 1-hour drama series. Here, you'll probably spend 300 US per minute, or 50, or 1,000. So it's a dramatic factor of reduction. And I always take a very simple example to try to portray this to my board. Say, on the top of this chart, you have got the high-cost carriers. You've got the big American Airlines, Lufthansa, KLM. This is the business model. And on the low side, you've got the low-cost carriers. You've got the Ryanair of this world, which can produce at lower cost. But ultimately, they deliver also what you want, which is basically a trip to a certain destination. Here, these low-cost carriers, so to speak, of audiovisual, deliver as well content to the viewers. Again, it's different content, it's different quality of service, it's different on-screen value, as we call it, but still, it's value. And we believe that we, as a group, and it's true for every audiovisual group in this room, I guess, we need to play on these two value chain, simply because this is about our future. This is what we have to do. So I talked about the MCN, just took this nice picture for those who listen to EDM. And I think we've got the representative of Tomorrowland here in the room, so it will definitely recognize Major Lazer here. Lean On. Major hit 1.5 years ago. When we partnered through our MCN with him, he was doing 2.5 million videos, no more. And we kind of aggregated his content in a better manner. We use cross-referencing with him, thumbnails, audience optimization, and we pushed this video up to 1 billion views. So this has been one of the mega hits of YouTube. And this is one example of partners that we have on our MCNs to develop the business. Again, has not much to do with what Denis Masquelier is selling here in Belgium South, because this is YouTube, this is not television. But you have got advertisers who are interested in trying to reach a certain audience watching this sort of video and the lean on video. We don't do it locally anymore. We do it worldwide, across the board. We could have people who are watching this in the Philippines, in China, in Japan, or in the US who are covering it all. Talking about the MCNs, just to give you a little color about this world, there are 2 types of MCNs. There's what we call the horizontal MCNs, meaning that they aggregate content in various verticals, in various genres. It can be comedy, music, news, sports, whatever, you name it. And then you have got other types of verticals or MCNs, which are called vertical MCNs, which are just dedicated on one specific item. And since we didn't know how these MCNs would pan out long term, we decided to invest first into a horizontal one, which is more like a general entertainment channel, so to speak, featuring multiple programming genres. But we also thought that it would be interesting to understand the verticalization of content. And here, StyleHall, as worldwide, probably is market share of 30%, i.e. 30% of the videos which in lifestyle, style, and beauty are featured on YouTube are actually aggregated by StyleHall. Again, we decided to acquire into this. And of course, their business model is not only selling inventory and GRPs on YouTube, it's also about making direct deals with big brands. Maybelline, P&G, you name it. Of course, the FMCGs who like to reach millennials through targeted advertising with creators who can feature their product on screen is something valuable, and therefore we've got also what we call branded entertainment or branded content revenues through these MCNs. So when we aggregate all the assets that we have, we now generate, and these numbers are always mind-boggling, it's always about billions when we talk about OTT, 22 billion. Looks huge. And we boast about this with the capital markets, say, well, how great we are, 22 billions. And I think Ben again was mentioning about currency. The problem is that the currency that we have in OTT is not the same at all that we have in linear television. Linear television is highly sophisticated. We've got media panels. We measure in the last second what people are watching. Here, we just talk about streams, number of video views. We never talk about quality of the video. We never talk about the length of the video. We never talk about the number of people who watch the video. So it's still a very crude currency. When you benchmark TV currency with this one is what I would say age zero of the currency measurement. And the difficulty that we've had, and we are all facing, is that it's difficult to mesh these two currencies together, but we believe that these new OTT platforms will need to ramp up the ladder to basically introduce a currency which is a golden standard. We've got the golden standard in television. This is probably the, I would say, the silver or the bronze bullion, so we need to change that. The other issue that we're facing is that whereas in televisions, we can command high GRP levels or the GRP prices simply because we offer an instant reach, a lot of viewers. Here, when you translate the 22 billions that the group generate on a monthly basis, you have to divide by 1,000 to come to the real revenue generated by the group, i.e. we do around 22 million US in revenue per month, simply because advertisers do not remunerate the quality of these MCNs. So it's a cheaper, it's a secondary market, so to speak, market with prices which are significantly lower than in our radio or TV broadcast. This brings me to the next, I would say, level of our strategy. So to start with very strong position in linear television, then we decided to branch out into the OTT and MCN world. So we did it by acquiring these assets in the US. But we also realized that ad tech, as we call it, technology, will play a more and more important role in the next 10 to 20 years to actually sell advertising. And this is why we also decided, again in the US, because of scale elements, to invest into what we call programmatic platforms. Again, it's a buzzword, programmatic. I'll come to it in a minute. And here we decided to invest into a company called SpotX in Denver. It's the NASDAQ of online video advertising. That's always the simplest way I can describe it. I.e., if you're an advertiser or an agency, you basically hook into this supply-side platform, SSP. You basically define the reach that you want, frequency cap. You define the minimum cost or price per thousand that you want to have. And then basically all the publishers, the online publishers which are hooked on this NASDAQ of online video, respond in a millisecond into your request, and they deliver instantly your campaign, I would say, worldwide. This is obviously off YouTube. YouTube and Facebook are walled gardens, the way I call it. It's very difficult to penetrate that environment. Here, it's all these so-called owned and operated or verticals that most of us have or operate. We complemented that investment by investment into SmartClip. SmartClip, you're probably not that familiar with this company, operates mostly in Germany, Nordics, and also in Spain. It's probably one of the largest, again, aggregators, demand-side platform, so to speak, for online publishers. They've got overall around 1,000 publishers on their network, whereas SpotX has got 600. So overall, we are rather large there. Now, talking about GRPs and talking about volumes and how we see this world, as far as the MCNs are concerned, I explained to you the value chain. Here, I take another value chain, which is my pyramid of GRPs. And if I had to typify it, typically in TV, we operate in high-quality content with a certain scarcity of that content, simply because the bandwidth that we offer to deliver this content is limited. That's premium content. Then the other content in the pyramid is mid-tier. These are typically the ONOs, owned and operated verticals, that you can access through your URL. You type, I don't know, www.vtm.com, .be, you will come on these mid-tier. And then you've got low-tier content, which are all the rest that you can buy worldwide. This is run-of-the-mill or run-of-the-network. And obviously, the lower you go into the pyramid, the lower the cost per GRP you would pay. Typically, very, very clear segmentation of that business. What does it mean for us as audiovisual groups? It means that typically in premium content TV, we operate very much through yearly deals with agencies and advertisers. We define, price, volumes committed, and so on. Whereas in mid-tier and low-tier, this is programmatic, this is scattered, this is done on a day-to-day basis, and advertisers book whenever they want. It's floating, or mega floating for the most of it. So, and again, we needed to understand and operate on the upper side of the pyramid, but we believe that as a group, we also need to offer a service and understand how these bulk volumes are sold, not only in Belgium, but also worldwide. And we realize, if I just take SpotX, that out of the 250 million gross revenue that we generate on the platform, we probably do 30, 40, 50% or 60% in the US, but the rest is done elsewhere in the world. We're in Japan, we operate in Singapore, we're also in Europe. So this is a broad stray of geographical mix. Now, when I translate our strategy into revenue, which is another KPI to measure the strategy, we realize that overall, two KPIs that I want to mention. First of all, the mix between linear and non-linear. Here you see that linear in red, and I took Germany, France, and USA as examples. Basically, Belgium is very much between Germany and France in terms of numbers. You see that out of, if I take Germany, 230 minutes watched by viewers in front of the screen, and here the screens are defined to a large extent. Still, linear television represents 223, and the rest, the 9 minutes, are basically everything which is non-linear OTT online delivered. You see that this gray bar is actually growing faster than the red bar. Red bar will probably be growing by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% per annum, we hope, in good years. But the gray bars will be growing, we hope, double digit. And that's why we need to operate in these two segments of the business. And to sum up key strategic pillars that we have, I talked about broadcast. We've got two others. Content, this is mostly Fremantle. Huge, huge asset for us because we're hedging our position in broadcast by making sure that we are selling to all these new platforms. And of course, digital nonlinear. This is the third pillar that my co-CEO and I are trying to grow in the years to come. So, talking about growing the business, another KPI here. Last year, just for 6 months, we generated around 200 million in revenues worldwide with these digital initiatives. I'm not talking about e-commerce or others. These are pure digital video. This year, we'll be growing by 20%. So on a full year basis, we'll definitely be in the tune of 500 to 600 million euros of revenues worldwide just in digital video. We think that it's good, it's growing, but it's still too small because overall digital represents 9.2% of our total revenue. You see that TV advertising still represents the largest chunk of our business, 50%. We've got radio, we've got platform revenue through distributors, through the cable operators and DTH platform that we do. Content, again, very important pillar of the group. And then this blue box that we want to further grow in the next few years. And if I had to sum up our strategy, what we realized over the last 3 years, that broadcast, digital, and content are merging together. And it's all about total video. It's all about the images that you have seen in my introductory video. This is what we're selling. And we should portray this group and all the audiovisual groups as total video deliverers. And this is what we need to be good at. I'd like to finish, and now I'm done, on what I would call probably the biggest cultural challenge into the group, and the people of RTL Belgium, we recognize that difficulty. It's the global versus local. Because in the last 20 years, we've been used to be and to operate very much locally. This has made the success of the group. We were so-called, Belgians in Belgium, French in France, Germans in Germany. Now you realize that with this new OTT and new form of video, we need to operate globally, i.e. we need to be in the US, we need to be in Brussels, but we also need to be worldwide to make sure that we are present into this entire value chain. And this is the challenge that my co-CEO and I will try to master together with our friends here in Belgium, this global versus local. How do we operate locally, and what is the global offers that we can offer to our advertising agencies and advertisers? And I guess this sums it all, and I hope that on the grading of applause, I'll get at least a 5+. We'll measure it in a minute, won't we? Okay, good, thank you. Bye.